Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Movie Bit Podcast. I am your host, Christian Renteria, and this podcast, as you can see, is the return of individual movie reviews. Of course, we're not going to be talking just about one movie on this podcast, but I wanted to bring that back a little bit. The last one I did was all the way back in January, and of course, the February and March roundups came out late. I am still working on the April one. I have it recorded. I just haven't had time to sit down and edit that long of a podcast. So that will come out, hopefully sometime next week, early next week. No promises on that, but, that's the goal of getting that out, as early as next week. But I didn't want to hold back, more for this one, because, I just wanted to come back and start doing individual movie reviews or reactions, as I want to call them, because I'm in no way qualified to actually review a movie. But, I wanted to come back and do these because that was really what I've been wanting to do for a while. So I am here. As you can tell from the title, we're going to be talking about The Fall Guy, and we're going to be talking about Tarot. Now, I'm going to leave Tarot to last because that was going to be the really quick one originally. But no, I'm going to talk about it first because I don't really have that much to say. So I'm not going to really get too much into spoiler territory. I will warn you if I do that. I don't think I'm going to be doing that really here with this one. So you don't have to really worry too much about spoilers. So we're going to talk about Tarot first. I wasn't expecting too much of Tarot, so it did kind of soften the blow a little bit, I guess, as I sat through watching this, because a lot of this movie is really dumb. So this movie, for those who don't know, follows a group of friends celebrating a friend's birthday who find a mysterious tarot card deck, and against the rules of using someone else's deck, tarot card deck, as of course, they do. They do a tarot reading, and it unleashes an evil, cursing the group, with each having to face their fate. Then it becomes a race to, of course, the finish to escape death itself. This movie, like I mentioned, it's not great. It's a little dumb in some places. I will say one nice thing about the movie, and that is the design of some of the, I don't really want to call them monsters. They're, the representations of the tarot card deck, themselves. I'll just call them monsters, just, for the lack of a better word. The design of a lot of those monsters, again, for the lack of a better word, look pretty decent. They do. They look pretty decent. They look like cool, designs, something you'd probably, find in a very high-end, haunted house. I was thinking about this, like, this would be a pretty decent, Halloween Horror Nights house, with the designs of the monsters and everything. But that, of course, is when they're properly lit. Because there's a lot of time where these monsters show up and they're covered so much in darkness that you can't, see the work. And I feel kind of bad for the people who designed, them, because unless there's like behind the scenes photos or they individually release these designs, you don't really get a full appreciation for a lot of them in the movie, because they kind of just show up, do the thing, and then they leave. So that's kind of a bummer. But that is my nice thing about the movie. I'm not going to go into it like I did with Madam Web and some other movies for February and March. To the other stuff, Tarot, it literally lays out everything that's going to happen to these characters in the beginning. So if you're one of those people like me who pays attention, throughout a movie, doesn't look at their phone, doesn't look at their watch, anything like that, it literally spoils the movie for you right at the beginning. There is literally like no surprise of what's going to happen to these characters, because you're like, and again, granted, you're watching a horror movie with young 20-something, actors. Of course, most of them are going to die. It's a horror movie. You're expecting a lot of them to die. But it's just the way they chose to do it. It's so explicit. It's not like Final Destination where it's like, these characters are going to die, but at least it's creative about it. And it doesn't doesn't necessarily lay out what they're doing. It just, it does what it's, they do die, but they don't be like, hey, this is how you're going to die. It doesn't do that. Taro is literally like, this is going to happen. This is what's going to happen, whether you like it or not. So, I don't know. I didn't like that. It's just one of the things that bothered me. And character-wise, I didn't really like any of them. There wasn't like one character I was like, I'm rooting for you. And I feel like a lot of time, I feel like probably what they were going for is Jacob Batalon, who was really the only familiar face in the movie. He's Ned in the Spider-Man movies, in the Sony Spider-Man movies. He's the only real name and probably face you'll recognize throughout the movie. And he plays Paxton. He's kind of like the overly sarcastic one, the one that's always kind of like, he's that one friend that always gets on your nerves, but he's your friend. So you could just tell him to shut up and you're okay with that. But he's kind of really the only character that I think they thought the audience would gravitate to. And no, he is kind of annoying. You just want him to shut up most of the time as well. There is a moment, I will say, involving a lot of them where I couldn't get past it. I couldn't honestly get past it. It's one of them dies in front of the others. And they did run away, and it looks like they're out of breath and they're scared. But it also felt like they were overacting. Like they couldn't decide if they wanted to be out of breath or overly react to the situation that they're in. I am the last person that should say anything about someone's acting, but it's apparent that they are overacting. So I don't know if this was done in reshoots or whatever. There's two directors here, so I don't know. Maybe, they just kind of, switched it off and, one day, 1 week we'll take over this and the other one will take over this. But it's overly apparent that they are overacting in that scene, and it took me out of it a little bit. But the moment that really took me out of it, where literally I rarely do this, and if I do this in the movie, it's not good. I literally rolled my eyes. There was a gag, a newspaper gag, during one of the deaths. It was so cheesy. This movie isn't necessarily too cheesy. It's trying to take itself a little seriously. Once if you can get past the fact that, they take, astrology and everything, very literally in this movie, I didn't like it. When it happened, I literally rolled thankfully my brother and I were the only ones in the theater, which would probably tell you something. I mean, it also was like a Monday night, but, it took me out of the movie too much. It was too cheesy. I rolled my eyes a little bit too much in that. So the movie does try to do some backstory to everything with the tarot cards and, what the history of it was. I didn't really care about it. And apparently this book, or the movie, I just ruined it. The movie is based on a book called Horoscope. I didn't realize that. I knew the movie was originally called Horoscope, but I didn't know it was based off a book. And then they changed it at some point to tarot. And I did a little bit of research, just very tiny bit, just look at the book and see if it was anything like the movie. Apparently the book is very different. It still has like the astrology kind of, obviously it's called Horoscope. So it still has the astrology bit here, but I don't know if but I think they added the tarot card bit. And I think there actually is like a serial killer in the book, whereas opposed to the movie, it's more of the cards coming to life and killing them. So I probably appreciate that more, but the execution wise, it was not good. So, I did not like tarot one bit. And this movie also feels like it came out in the early 2000s instead of 2024. I don't know. That's a good thing. I don't know if you like that. For me, that took me out of it too. It just, I didn't like it. If you want to watch like a trashy, not good horror movie around Halloween, maybe this is it. You and your friends can get together and make fun of it. But other than that, I did not like tarot. And I'm sure that's overly apparent by me saying everything I just said. All right, so let's get to the movie that I did actually like and enjoy, The Fall Guy. Is, of course, the first movie. I didn't mention this with Taro. This is the first movie of the summer movie season. The summer movie season is here. Me and Stefan over my last podcast that I did, the summer movie season preview podcast, ran all the summer movie season down a little bit. So you want to go check that out. I highly recommend it. It's a fun listen. At least I think so. But this is the first summer movie season movie. It's the first one in a while where Marvel has not opened it. And instead, the responsibility for opening the summer went to David Leitch to direct the action comedy romance based on the 80s show of the same name, The Fall Guy. Ryan Gosling plays Colt Seavers, a stuntman for Hollywood's A-list star Tom Ryder, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Colt gets hurt early in the movie and quits the game, and so he is asked by a movie producer, Gail Meyer, played by Hannah Whittingham from, most of us will probably know her from Ted Lasso. She's the woman who runs the team, to come work on the potential next big hit in Hollywood, a remake of Metal Storm. Although it's not treated as a remake in the movie, at least I didn't get that vibe from it, because there is a movie called Metal Storm that came out like in the early 80s or in the 80s. I don't know if it was early 80s, but it came out in the 80s. So they don't treat it as a remake. But there's also a crazy bit in here because you see them filming and then you see like the finished product every now and then. There is a blatant, most like so in your face connection to a movie that came out earlier this year. You're like, wow. It's almost funny. It is funny. Not almost funny. It is funny that they did that. I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, Colt says no at first to coming back because he's still kind of, he was hurt and he feels like, there's a lot of character development into him saying no originally, which I won't get into, but they get into it into the movie. Colt says no at first until he is told that the movie is directed by Jody Moreno, played by Emily Blunt, the woman he was madly falling for before the accident. And this is her first movie as well. In truth, Colt is actually brought in by Gail to find help. In truth, Colt is brought in by Gail to help find Tom, who has gone missing. And if word got out that Tom is missing, the studio will shut down the movie, which happened, again, like I mentioned, happens to be Jody's first directorial effort, and her career in the movie will be ruined. Colt, of course, agrees, only to find that Tom has been hanging out with some shady people. And what follows is Colt trying to find Tom while avoiding some very serious people, filming the movie with Jody, rekindling their relationship, and finally some really cool action sequences. Like I mentioned, I really enjoy The Fall Guy, and more importantly, this is a love letter to stunt people. Leitch & Co. has said as much by making it clear that this is what it is. And Peacock actually has a documentary called Action, if you want to go check it out, which is about 87 North. It's Leitch's stunt team and production banner, in which they follow them being 87 North, and the stunt people and the stunt team as they worked on Silent Night, and then as they worked on The Fall Guy. It's like 6 episodes. The first 3 are Silent Night. The last 3 are The Fall Guy. And in it, especially the Fall Guy section, you see them working on the bigger stunts in the movie, like the car roll, in which they actually broke the record. It's not something they just say in the movie. They actually broke the record of a car roll. We see them doing that in the series, and we see a bunch of stuff in the series, which actually made me appreciate the movie a little bit more, seeing that. Seeing those stunts beforehand and then seeing them in the movie. I thought seeing them beforehand would kind of ruin the experience, but actually seeing them in the movie after watching the documentary made me appreciate those stunts a little more because I know what went into them. But the series, by the way, Action, very, very good if you want to check that out. And there is a very small but standout moment in the movie and in the docuseries where they mention that there is no Oscars for stunt people. And of course, there should be, because stunt people put their lives on the line and make the movie stars, quote unquote, look awesome and unbeatable. So yeah, The Fall Guy is pretty great for that. And what better person to do a stuntman movie than a stuntman turned director himself in David Leitch. And in interviews, Gosling has been championing stunt people too. So if this is what it takes, this movie, Gosling, one of the biggest, stars in Hollywood, going out there, be like, we should appreciate stunt people more. If that's what it takes for Hollywood to finally pay attention, then I'm all for it. Then, we should wholeheartedly support this movie even more than we have and more than we should. And of course, according to the box office numbers, which I won't get into. That's a whole thing, and I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, back to the movie. I mentioned I really enjoyed it. A great deal of it is because of Ryan Gosling. Obviously, Gosling is really good here. He's funny. He's charming. He looks and acts like a movie star. His chemistry with Emily Blunt is also very good. They are great together. I saw someone on Twitter say that Gosling and Blunt didn't have chemistry together. And to that person, I want to say, what movie were you watching? Because they had great chemistry together. The rest of the cast do well with what they're given. This really is the Gosling show. So, everyone, else doesn't really have a lot going on. Winningham, pops in every now and then as producer, and she's downing Diet Coke every time she's on screen, which I'm sure is a call out to someone in the industry, or maybe just a call out to, in general, to, producers. Aaron Taylor Johnson's Tom Ryder is, very into himself as an actor. And I'll leave the rest, for what his character is to discover when you watch the movie. Winston Duke plays the action choreographer Dan Tucker in the movie. He's old friends with Colt and eventually gets dragged into what Colt is doing. And Duke is pretty good. He's given, a little bit more to do once he kind of enters the situation. And him and Colt have this, I'm sure this is a real thing also for some people, where they quote movies to each other. And Dan's usually the one quoting movies to Colt, and Colt's figuring them out as they go along. It's a little, character thing. It's a little thing that, makes these characters feel a little real, which is pretty cool. Teresa Palmer and Stephanie Sue have very small supporting roles in this movie. Palmer plays Ryder's co-star girlfriend, sort of. And Sue plays Ryder's, I think she's the assistant to him. And they're kind of random roles for them, especially for Sue. But it's nice to see them, that they're doing something. But you could have gotten anybody else for these roles. It just feels weird that it's them. I didn't even recognize Teresa Palmer. So I don't know. I just had to mention that. If I had to say a misstep for the movie, it does slow down a bit. I wouldn't say it's aimless, but when we get to the mystery aspect of the movie of Colt trying to find Tom, and it's somewhat serious, and then it jumps to them filming the movie, and Colt and Jody being very lovey-dovey to each other. That's part of the movie, but you forget when they're doing that, they have this whole montage of them filming the movie, and doing all these stunts and stuff, and then it's like it just jumps back to Colt trying to figure out what's going on with Tom. And also, they do that right after Colt figures something out that's very, very huge and massive. And it's like, oh no, we're just going to go and film this. So it's just a little off. It's, I don't know if it's just script wise, they couldn't figure it out how to maintain that. But for the most part, the movie's good. It does slow down a bit a couple times, but, it's still pretty good for me. Other than that, The Fall Guy has it's just a lot of fun. Gosling's super charming in it. He's having fun. He's clearly having a lot of fun. You can see that. And this movie has some pretty great stunt work. And seeing the docuseries, again, just made me appreciate those moments a hell of a lot more. Yeah, again, it's a little uneven, but I'm not going to fault it and be like, oh, this movie's not worth it. This movie's not good. I'm not going to do any of that. I really like this movie. It's really great. I really enjoyed The Fall Guy. I think it's a great way to start the summer. I do feel like it should be doing a little bit better at the box office. I don't know if we failed it. I don't know if it's just people not being interested. I don't know what it is, but please go support The Fall Guy. It's a very, very good movie. So that's it. That's what I got for you guys. Fall Guy and Tarot. Tarot is, I do not recommend Tarot. I really, really don't. Don't bother. That is my official rating. I do have a rating system. I gotta look that up. So what it was, I forgot to pull that up. But yeah, Tarot is a don't bother. Don't do it. Don't watch it unless you just feel like you have to watch a horror movie. There's other horror movies out there that you can watch, and I'm sure will be coming to VOD soon that are much better than this. Fall Guy, I would recommend it. I would highly recommend Fall Guy. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a little, it gets a little, I don't want to say, I said aimless earlier. I think that's a little mean, or not, the word I really wanted to use. It slows down a little bit, probably too much for its own good. But the rest of the movie, really, really fun, really great for action, even romance fans. So it's a nice little romance movie as well. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. This will probably be the only podcast this week. Again, I'm still working on the April roundup. That will come out hopefully early next week. And then I will try to do some more individual movie reviews, but just the way everything is with work-wise, it's kind of getting crazy now that it's kind of near the end. I'm a substitute teacher, so I'm sure I mentioned that. It's getting to the end of the school year, so a lot of teachers being absent or teachers having to supervise some other testing or whatever. So it's getting a little busy, but once that's over, podcast is going to come back in full force. So thank you guys for listening once again. Make sure to check out all the socials down below. Rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, whatever podcaster you're listening to the podcast on. And I will see you guys next time.
Whoop, whoop, yeah! Give it up! Movie!